From China's rising power to the possibility of a global food crisis. Tonight, a look at issues facing the world. And thanks for joining us for Faith Nation. In Washington, I'm Jenna Browder. The war on Ukraine could open the door to greater global conflict. A new axis of evil, led by Russia and China, is determined to control the world's technology and commerce. Gary Lane brings us the details.
Within hours of invading Ukraine, Vladimir Putin made an urgent phone call to Beijing. He wanted to discuss his actions with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Not only did Xi know about the invasion in advance, Western intelligence officials say the Chinese requested Putin delay military action until after the Beijing Olympics. Russia obliged. This revelation indicates a strengthening of the Sino-Russian alliance and suggests the potential for President Xi to rely on his Russian partner for additional help. So is he preparing to pounce on Taiwan?
Certainly, he's watching what happens in Ukraine and certainly how the rest of the world reacts to it. I think Putin went to China in order to get Xi's blessing for the invasion.
And perhaps a nod toward closer cooperation. Both presidents know Russian success in Ukraine is necessary for the alliance to make more significant gains.
Russia the bear and China the dragon are looking at a way to undermine the United States on the edges of their spheres of influence. If the Russians extend their area of hegemonic influence over Eastern Europe, China backs it. The Chinese will look towards the Russians for support for a potential invasion of Taiwan, an expansion of their hegemonic interests towards Southeast Asia.
Greg Roman is director of the Middle East Forum.
Both countries, I think wrongly, but they both feel threatened by the U.S. dominance in the region, and now they're pushing back. If they work together, they're more likely to think that they'll succeed. But I think the U.S., by the time it starts confronting these two theaters, should wake up and realize that it's time to contain Russia and China. And at the end of the day, the Russians and the Chinese have a historical grievance that goes back hundreds of years, and that might upset the apple cart.
For now, in order to aid their pursuit for Russian energy and Chinese money, certain countries are joining this new Sino-Russian-led axis. That includes Pakistan, whose Prime Minister Imran Khan met with Putin just hours before the Ukraine invasion, even though war was imminent. His high-level Moscow visit was Pakistan's first of its kind in more than 20 years. Hudson Institute senior fellow Robert Spalding suggests why timing of this convergence is troubling.
Ukraine plus Russia plus China plus China's Belt and Road Initiative, so all the satellite states, to include countries like Iran and North Korea and others that are along the Belt and Road Initiative, makes them incredibly powerful, not just militarily, not just from a nuclear weapon perspective, but also economically, financially, and increasingly technologically.
American ally Taiwan would be a rich target. It has plenty of wealth and technology, currently accounting for 60% of the world's semiconductor revenue. A coordinated military invasion of the island would give the members of this alliance dominance over the global microchip industry. That could prove devastating to the U.S. defense industry, which relies heavily on its allies' tech.
Taiwan Semiconductor is the best chip manufacturer in the world today. It's no longer American companies. It is TSMC. Now, the good news is they've started to build a fab in Arizona. So, part of what we would be doing in the response to a potential invasion by China would be relocating the engineers and scientists that work on chips, and as many of the people of Taiwan that would like to, leave before the invasion begins.
Concerns over this anti-American axis extend far beyond Taiwan and advanced Chinese military capabilities. North Korea, a longtime member, continues to threaten its neighbors with missile launches, and Iran may soon possess a nuclear weapon. Technology experts also warn that China's advances in artificial intelligence already exceed those of the United States.
It's really a fundamentally different world, and the tragedy of it all is that we help them build it.
And we're not doing a lot to advance our own, are we?
This has been growing. We knew it was happening. We wanted to hope or wish it away, kind of like Chamberlain and others of his ilk during World War II.
And the Ukrainian pushback against the Russians may be the wake-up call needed to spur the United States and its allies to respond resolutely to this new and dangerous axis of evil threat. Gary Lane, CBN News.
A perfect storm of problems creating a food supply crisis. Up next, why grocery prices are soaring. Welcome back. Well, inflation, supply shortages, and the war in Europe all point to a looming global catastrophe. As CBN senior international correspondent Dale Hurd reports, food experts warn a historic famine is on the horizon, with 285 million people at risk of starvation.
It's mealtime in the nation of Yemen, but Ghalib al-Najjar isn't eating so that his children have enough food. He says he and his family live like ants or fish. We eat what we can find. Experts warn that in the months ahead, food is going to be harder to find in many more nations. A perfect storm of several problems is decimating the world food supply. It's being called the biggest food crisis since World War II. An estimated 285 million people face starvation. The head of the World Food Program, former South Carolina Governor David Beasley, says the world food supply already faced a catastrophe before the war in Ukraine.
We're so short of funds already, and now with Ukraine, we've got 50% rations for people, for example, in Yemen. Niger, 50% rations. Chad, 50% rations. And 50% don't have anything, those who are in extreme need.
In the U.S., Americans have seen food costs rise almost 10% over last year, the steepest increase in 40 years. And experts predict it will lead to an increase in malnutrition among America's poor. In the developing world, however, it's become a matter of life and death. Russia and Ukraine together produce almost 1/3 of the world's wheat, but Ukrainian farmers have been sidelined by the war, and Russia has banned exports.
They've got to be planting again and harvesting again. If they don't, then you're going to have a global supply problem.
And the war in Ukraine is only the latest of many problems to hit the world food supply. Food prices were already high from soaring inflation and fuel costs. Fertilizer prices are now 40% higher than a month ago before the invasion of Ukraine, which, along with high fuel prices, makes it too expensive for some farmers to plant crops this year.
We've never seen these type of increases in fertilizer. You're talking 300-400% increases in a 14-month period.
Add to that a drought that damaged this spring's U.S. winter wheat harvest. In China, severe flooding late last year wrecked the wheat harvest and has the communist government trying to buy up as much of the world's supply as possible. And now a growing list of nations have banned agricultural exports to other nations. Reverend Eugene Cho of Bread for the World says the U.S. needs to do more to fight global hunger, asking Congress to approve $3.8 billion in supplemental emergency funding.
But let's just talk about Afghanistan. 98% of the population do not have enough food to eat. 98%, 1 million children under the age of 5 could die from malnutrition by the end of this year.
Even Africa's wealthiest nation faces a food crisis, according to Nigerian agri-investor Imal Silva, who told us a majority of Nigerians face malnutrition.
Those that are most affected are the majority in the lower and middle class, in the society. Those that are living below a particular level of income would feel the pinch, and that's quite a large majority.
And Beasley warns the world's food crisis could spiral into a political crisis.
You got catastrophe coming to catastrophe, so don't be surprised if you don't see destabilization in several nations over the next 6 to 9 months.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Terminal patients getting extra years. We'll take you inside the cancer center that's saving lives from all over the world.
First, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN. the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place, all day, every day. The CBN News Channel. Download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com. CBN News.
Well, when doctors gave her 4 weeks to live, 46-year-old Michelle Tucker was told to go home and put her affairs in order. Instead, she refused to give up and turned to a small Christian hospital in Mexico, bringing hope to the hopeless. George Thomas takes us to Tijuana for a first-hand look.
August 2017. Michelle Tucker remembers the words from that day in the doctor's office as her oncologist delivered the news.
I was told I had about 4 weeks to live, to go home and get my affairs in order.
The 46-year-old mother of 3 had battled cancer since she was 19. It started in her breast, first spreading to her thyroid, and then pancreas.
I figured I would take my children maybe to the beach for the first week of those 4 weeks and just sit on the beach. But at the same time, I had the attitude of like, who are you to tell me my expiration date? There's only one person that can do that, and that's not a doctor. No offense to medicine. That's the man upstairs.
In desperation, she researched alternative cancer treatments and ended up here at the Oasis of Hope Hospital.
If you get diagnosed with cancer, you're not going to travel to Tijuana, Mexico. But when they have reached a point where the doctor is saying, we really can't do anything else for you, this is a typical person that comes to Oasis of Hope.
25 miles south of San Diego and just across the Mexican border, Tucker believes God is using Oasis of Hope to give her a chance to continue living.
From the moment that you walk in the doors, you feel this overwhelming spiritual presence. There's the pastor that sings with you, they pray with you, you become a family.
Tucker has been in remission now for 2 years. Oasis of Hope was started in 1963 by the late Mexican doctor Ernesto Contreras Sr., who believed in taking a holistic approach to fighting cancer. His son, Dr. Francisco Contreras, now serves as the hospital's president.
My father felt that the reason for the failure in oncology and medicine overall is that we have become just mechanics of the human body.
So the idea for Oasis of Hope originated back in the early 1960s when Contreras' father decided to go on a missions trip to Greece. And on that trip, he discovered 3 important elements that are today at the core of the hospital.
Contreras says while traditional oncology focuses on destroying the tumor, his father, a physician, wanted the hospital to focus on the patient's emotional renewal, spiritual revival, as well as physical restoration. The founder's grandson, Daniel Kennedy, serves as the hospital's CEO.
So there is no other clinic in Tijuana that actually has a pastor on the payroll, praying for patients every day, opening with praise and worship.
Ernesto Lopez is that pastor. He used to lead a local church in Tijuana. Now he walks the corridors of the hospital, ministering to the spiritual and emotional needs of patients.
Yeah, seen a lot of miracles. A lot of miracles, miracles of healing, miracles of salvation.
Using a combination of conventional treatments with alternative therapies such as whole-body hypothermia, ozone therapy, and dendritic cell vaccine immunotherapy, Oasis of Hope says it has treated more than 100,000 cancer patients from 60 countries.
The majority come from the United States because we're just across the border from San Diego.
So you're in charge of everything that lands on a patient's table here at Oasis.
Rosa Tesada is the hospital's nutritionist. Working with kitchen staff, Tesada has designed a cancer-fighting plant-based food program to help patients live a healthier life. 90% of the meals served here are vegan-based.
Okay, so we don't want to make anybody feel like you have to leave your old life back. Just let's add some new, more greens, more vegetables, and then just kind of enjoy food and go along with it.
The hospital grows vegetables on its rooftop garden and teaches patients how to prepare healthy meals.
So what we do is help them to see, hey, you can make very healthy dishes very fast and very easy.
There remain several opinions on this alternative approach and others. For example, the American Cancer Society states some complementary methods have generally not been proven to help prevent or treat cancer or its symptoms. It recommends discussing any treatment patients might consider with their doctor or cancer team. While doctors at Oasis of Hope are proud to share success stories like Kayla's, Michelle's, and others, they point out not all patients who come here will make it. Still, Dr. Contreras believes all deserve to be treated with compassion and the love of Christ.
I believe that hope is a very powerful tool and that all patients should have hope.
Contreras says what he, along with his team of doctors, nurses, nutritionists, pastors, and counselors, are negotiating for is more time for patients.
I cannot guarantee anything. I cannot guarantee anything for myself. The only thing that I can guarantee is that I'm going to sit with you and I'm going to do everything possible and I'm going to negotiate with you for life. And God will decide yes, no, or maybe.
George Thomas, CBN News, Tijuana, Mexico.
The Pilgrimage Road brings the Bible to life. We explain when Faith Nation returns.
Your news channel, your shows, the stories you care about. Anytime you want, anywhere you want. Download the CBN News app today.
Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount, the City of David. One path links these three sites together. It's the path Jesus walked on the pilgrimage to the temple in ancient Jerusalem. And archaeologists are uncovering this path for all to see. Chris Mitchell takes us there.
They call it the biblical superhighway, the pilgrim's path that led to the Jewish temple in ancient times.
The places and events and the peoples that make Jerusalem, Jerusalem. For Christians, for Jews, it all happened here in the city of David. This is where the beating heart of Jerusalem is. We're talking about the Pool of Siloam. We're talking about Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount. We're talking about the city of David. The pilgrimage road links them all together.
For Jews in ancient days, their pilgrimage began here at the Pool of Siloam. It's a mikveh or ritual bath. It's the size of 2 Olympic swimming pools. They would purify themselves here before going up to the Temple Mount to worship God.
The historian Josephus says that 2,000 years ago, on the pilgrimage festivals, there would have been more than 2 million people going up on pilgrimage. That's a lot of people who need to bathe.
The pool is also where Jesus healed the blind man, as recounted in the book of John. Its location was hidden by a road until 15 years ago, when a sewage leak led to excavations, the discovery of the pool, and much more.
The archaeologists, when they find the Pool of Siloam, so they understand if that's the pool, and they know where the temple stood on the Temple Mount some 2,000 years ago. The same Temple Mount as today.
Zev Orenstein with the City of David Foundation says archaeologists wondered how the pilgrims traveled from the pool to the Temple Mount.
So the archaeologists widened the excavation, and we are standing on the very answer to that question. We are standing atop the ancient pilgrimage road.
These are the stones that Jesus would have walked on his way up to the temple. And now the significance of the excavation of the pilgrimage road is that for the first time in 2,000 years, visitors will be able to walk all the way from the Pool of Siloam up to the Western Wall.
The word in the Bible, the Hebrew words, is aliyah l'regel, or ole regel. Now, what we understand that to mean is it's a spiritual ascent. You're going up to the temple, going to Jerusalem. It's a very holy place. But Chris, when you're in the place where the Bible happened, the words of the Bible come to life. Because as we're walking right now, and I'm sure you could feel it, we're walking uphill.
And it was more than that.
This would have been like Times Square. You would have had on both sides of the road, and keep in mind, the road is about 3, 4, 5 times wider than what we see over here. You would have had shops, stalls along both sides of the road. This is the center of Jerusalem from a spiritual perspective, from a communal perspective, also from a commerce perspective.
According to the Israel Antiquities Authority, the road took 10 years to build, from 20 to 30 AD, and was constructed by Pontius Pilate.
One of the major issues of Jerusalem is that it's a living city. All the layers, all the archaeological layers are built on top of one another, and the modern living quarters and everything is built on top of the archaeological layers.
Excavation manager Ari Levy says uncovering the road is a major engineering feat.
We have modern neighborhood just above our heads, and we don't want it to collapse. After each meter that we take out, each meter of soil, we enter an arch-like construction like this. This supports the entire weight of what we have above us.
Along the route, you can see many places where the road remains intact and others where it's destroyed, given its violent history.
We know that the Romans, they destroyed Jerusalem. And if you would find everything perfectly intact, well, it wouldn't seem like much of a destruction.
Among the discovered treasures are small coins minted during the Great Jewish Revolt, before the Romans destroyed the Temple and Jerusalem in 70 AD. Scholars often wonder why the Jews made worthless coins instead of weapons. Orenstein has the answer.
Jews of Jerusalem understood that the Romans were likely going to destroy the city, but they also believed that one day in the future, their descendants would return and find these coins, and they would know what their ancestors lived and died for a free Jerusalem. And here we are nearly 2,000 years later, standing along the very same pilgrimage road here in the city of David, in Jerusalem, the capital of the Jewish state of Israel.
Half of the pilgrimage road will open soon to the public, and within a few years, all the way from the Pool of Siloam to the Western Wall. That will give visitors a first-hand experience of what it was like to worship God in the time of Jesus. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, along the pilgrimage road in the city of David, Jerusalem.
And that's all for this special edition of Faith Nation. Thank you for joining us once again. Have a great evening.